Hi, my name is Laree and I am the owner of Sew Into It Lessons. Guys, I am excited about today's video because I am going to show you how to read a commercial pattern from the envelope to the tissue that's inside. What all the symbols mean, what the sizing means, and all of that good stuff. We're gonna get into it today. Before we do, I wanna say a huge thank you and a big welcome to all of you who are new subscribers. Since my last video, guys, my subscriptions have literally doubled. So I'm super excited, I'm super glad, and I'm also happy to bring this video to you today. So let's get started. Alright guys, here we are looking at the front of the pattern, and the part here that's most important that I want to point out to you, of course, is the size. This says that this is a US size 6 to 14. I want to point out that this is not a retail size 6 to 14. So for instance, if you wear off the rack from a retail store a size 12, this pattern is not going to fit in the same way as your retail size 12. It will actually be much too small. A commercial pattern sizing is very much different than the fashion industry sizing for clothing that ends up in a store. So with that, once you've looked at that, you want to go ahead and look at the back of the pattern to find your actual size. So if you are just starting with using patterns, it's a good idea to have your measurements written down and then take them with you to the fabric store. If you pretty much know your measurements, then you can find your way around the back of the pattern. Alrighty, so let's start up here. This is going to give us a description of what this is: overalls, jumper, and a knit crop top. Okay, here on this side underneath the pattern number, it's going to tell you how many pattern pieces are inside of this envelope. And these are all illustrations of course, what the different design options are. So down here under the short description is something that says fabrics. So it says A here for look A, which is this top. It says that it's sized for stretch knits only. Okay, this fabric section is a suggestion, but guys, I'm going to tell you that it's a strong suggestion. Okay, it's sized for stretch knits only, jersey, spandex, anything that has a two-way stretch. What you'll find is if it does not have a two-way stretch, you will not be able to get into this top without having a zipper or some kind of opening. Okay. Next, for B and C, these looks down here, it gives you the suggested fabrics that should be used to give you the best look, to give the garment the best fall, and all of those things. Now down here underneath fabrics, this says notions. These are all of the other things that you will need to finish this design outside of fabric. So for look A, you're going to need hem tape. For looks B and C, you'll need a zipper, 2 buttons. So be sure to look at this before you take off out of the store, or just make sure that you have everything that you need to finish off the garment. Okay. Next, we'll go down to body measurements. So this is where you measure yourself and then you line it up with what's on here. Down here are the sizes. These are US sizes. These are European sizes. This particular pattern actually uses numbers for sizing. Other patterns will use a scale of extra small to extra large. Okay, but looking here at the numbers, it's still the same. I do need to interject that some other patterns will have a size range here and not just exact numbers. They'll give you a size range. So let's say you measured yourself and you found that you are a 36 in the bust. You will follow that line down, and that says size 14. Great. And then you measure your waist and you see that you are a size 26 and a half in the waist. So 36 in the bust, 26 and a half in the waist. That's a size 12. Okay, guys, I was watching a Periscope video show. I was watching Periscope and I saw this um, seamstress on there who said something so great, something that I always knew about patterns, but it was good to hear her say it. And it was something to the effect of this: the pattern is going to give you the general shape of the garment. It's up to you to make it fit. So you're going to find that you do not fall within one column. Okay, you'll find that your bust is in one place and that your waist is in another place, and that's okay. The pattern does need adjusting to make it fit your body size. This pattern and the sizing, for the most part, are general, but for it to be uniquely yours, you do need to give it some adjusting. Also, when you are sizing a pattern, it's always best to size yourself to the bust. Okay, if nothing else is going to fit you and fit you properly, let the bust fit you properly. If it's like a full dress or something, for full torso or a top, because once you've sewn that garment up, it's harder to adjust the bust compared to adjusting the waist, which might be simply taking the seam allowance in or out. So fit yourself, make sure that measurement is correct. So again, if I am a 36 in the bust and a 26 and a half waist, well, probably the best thing to do is to cut this pattern in a size 14 and adjust the size 14 waist down to a size 12 versus cutting it in a 12 and trying to adjust it or let the fabric out to accommodate a size 14 bust. Okay, so let's keep going. Here, this is telling you how much fabric that you need in order to complete the different looks here on the left. So for the crop top, it says that if you have fabric that is 60 inches wide, if you don't know what that means, guys, I am going to show you later on in this video with an actual bolt from the fabric store what that looks like. So if your fabric is 60 inches wide and you're cutting this in a size 14, then you'll need 3/4 yard of fabric. If you're cutting this in a size 18, 60-inch fabric, you will need 1 yard of fabric, so on and so forth. For this jumper, here's where a difference comes in. Fabric comes in a few different widths. 45 is one of them and 60 is another. 45 is a very narrow fabric. Okay, you can get it to whatever length and yardage, but it's very narrow. And because of that, you'll obviously need more fabric in order to lay out these pattern pieces. A 60-inch wide bolt of fabric is much wider than the 45-inch, so you may not need as much length and yardage because you'll have the width to lay out those pattern pieces. And if that doesn't make sense now, I'm going to show you later on with pattern pieces and with actual fabric what that looks like. So again, once you've found your sizes, for this pattern, you'll find your size, your highest size, and look to see how much fabric you need for that size. Okay, and again, the overalls, it gives you the same. The overalls are here. For the type of fabric you have, type width of fabric, how much fabric yardage you will actually need to buy in order to complete this. Next is the finished garment measurements. What does this mean? It says it includes the design and wearing ease. Okay, so some items of clothing are designed to fit very loosely. Some items of clothing are designed to fit bodycon or body conscious, close to the body. So this includes the design and then wearing ease. So A, once this is all sewn up, said and done, a size 12 will be a 34.5 bust. 34.5 bust. And as you can see, if you compare that, that's going to be pretty close fitting. The difference between the finished garment measurement only gives you a 1/2 inch worth of wiggle room. We'll call it that. That's what ease is, wiggle room. Because of course, if these garments, especially if they're not stretched, if they were made to fit you exactly, they'd be kind of snug, tight. So garment C in the hips, and this is actually pretty important because these are pants. Even though the design does include a lot of fabric, this tells you how much the measurement of the hips, across the hips, this is going to be once it's finished. Okay, and it continues to give you those measurements. So the back length from the base of the neck down to the bottom of the garment, how long is it? Side length and the width. So this also gives you the sweep of the hem. So for this skirt, once this is all said and done, the sweep of this skirt is going to be, let's say for size 12, right here, 117.5 inches. For each leg, the sweep, the width, is going to be 32.5. So why is this important? Well, you can kind of gauge what you want this garment to look like. You won't be surprised in the end. Let's say you don't want this much flare at the bottom of this skirt. Well, you can adjust your pattern and you can take some of that sweep out of the skirt before you even start and finish. Let's say you don't want the pant legs this wide, 31.5 inches. You can actually measure that on your measuring tape to see how wide that is. Well, you can always adjust it before you start to cut your fabric. Okay, so guys, this is the pattern envelope, how to read it. Next, we will go on to the pattern pieces themselves and how to read them. Now we are going to take a look at the actual pattern on the inside. I have not opened this pattern yet. I haven't cut it. I've been wanting to make this, so this is good. We are going to look at, I'm going to cut out the pattern pieces for the jumper, which is look B. Remember, look A is the crop top, but the jumper is look B. And I'm going to lay it out for you on this fabric here. I'm not going to cut it in this video, but I am going to lay it out to show you and demonstrate what the symbols on the pattern mean. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to take out the instructions. Remember, I showed you on the back of this envelope that there are 18 pieces. It says there are 18 pieces inside of this envelope. And each piece has a number. Okay, and if you want to take the pieces for just look B only, well, this paper, these instructions are going to tell you which pieces belong to look B. So let's open this up. So this is telling us all of these letters here, these are the different looks, okay? A, B, C. So for B, I need the front piece of the skirt, which is 5. For B, I also need the pocket, and it shows that here. B as well. So all of the look B needs pieces 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way through 13.
Only those pattern pieces belong to this jumper. So those are the pattern pieces that I am pretty much going to fish out of this envelope. Okay. Here, the rest of these things, these are general directions, as it says, giving you a definition of what these symbols mean. I'm going to go over those as we go along. These are some sewing directions, letting you know how to get the best look when you're sewing a curve or when you are sewing corners. That's what all of this is here. And these are layouts telling you how to get the most out of your fabric. So guys, a pattern, once you cut it out and put it on your fabric, you kind of have to lay it down like a puzzle piece so that you don't waste fabric. You don't want to do that, because most likely you went to the store and you bought just enough for what you need, and if you lose fabric because you haven't laid it down properly, well, you're gonna have to go back and buy some more. So you don't want that. You want to get as much as you can out of your fabric by laying down your pattern pieces kind of like a puzzle, and as close as possible together. Alrighty, so the rest of these are sewing directions, and it gives you step by step how to put this thing together. It is a good idea to glance over these first before you even start to cut, or even right after you cut, to see what steps you'd be expected to do and in what order. Okay, so I am going to put this to the side, and we're going to go ahead and I'll put this one to the side. I'm going to keep this piece because this one is telling me which pattern pieces I need to take out of here. Okay, these are more directions. So a commercial pattern comes printed in place like a puzzle on these large pieces of tissue, just like this. And like this said here, we're looking for pieces 5 through 13. So that's what I'm going to go on a hunt for right now. Pieces 5 through 13. Let's go. So I see 12 over there. I'll go ahead and take that. Now guys, I'm using scissors. These are paper cutting scissors. I only use these scissors for cutting paper. I do have a separate set of fabric cutting scissors. You do need a separate pair of paper scissors and fabric scissors. So I'm cutting this out. There are lines here, but I am not going to attempt to cut on the lines. I know a lot of people who do. They spend a lot of time cutting out their patterns, but this isn't going to affect my pattern either way if I cut it neatly or not. So I'm just going to go ahead and get them out of here. So on this particular pattern, this pattern has a size range of 6 to 14. And if you notice here, this piece only has sizes 8 and 14. Okay. And that's done sometimes. Here's another size 12. So if you only see a couple of sizes, continue looking for that number pattern piece and you'll find the rest of the sizes. For me, this is okay. We're just doing a demonstration. I'm not going to hunt out the other pieces. So I'll put this to the side. So pieces 5 through 5, which is skirt front. Cutting out the pattern pieces. I'm just going to go ahead and put these patterns to the side. I'll just put them back here. And I'll go ahead and lay out my fabric now. Now guys, I'm not gonna cut the fabric, but laying out the fabric will put the symbols and the instructions on the pattern piece in context. So that's what I'm gonna do. So I told you guys before that on the back of the pattern, it gives you instructions about how much fabric you need for the size of fabric that you have. And I told you I would show you how to find that information. Now, guys, I have so much fabric in my house. I have so much fabric, it's taking over my life. So in order to organize it, I went to Joann's and I asked them for their empty bolts of this is how you read this, and this is how you find out the width of your fabric. So here you're gonna find all the information, and this says that this is 100% cotton. Of course, this is not the bolt that belongs to this fabric. Here it is. So this says that this is 57 inches. So whatever was on here before, it's 57 inches wide, which is pretty close to 60. So these widths can be as small as, I believe, 37, and they can come as wide as like 110, and that's usually just for muslin fabric. So if you want to know how wide a fabric is so that you can get enough according to the envelope instructions, the pattern envelope, take a look at this part of the bolt of fabric, and somewhere within these lines, like right here, it says 57 inches. That's how wide this fabric that was originally on here, that's how wide it was. Okay, so that's reading the bolt. Okay. There we go. Yeah, and putting my fabric on the bolt, I found it to be just so much better with laying it out and with keeping my fabric straight and not wrinkled or crinkled or anything like that. So I've laid it out here. I did my best to make sure that the salvage edges are matched up. I have my folded edge and I have my salvage edge. Okay. Here's my first pattern piece. Let's take a look here. It says front B, cut 1 on fold. And it tells you where that folded side is. This symbol right here is the symbol for fold. This bar with the arrows, this automatically means put it on the fold. This is the center front of the dress. Okay, so that's the first symbol. This pattern on the envelope, there are pleats, open darts here in front. Okay, these are the markings for those pleats. So whatever size you're cutting out, once you get this all cut, this is telling you these dots mean that you're going to match them. And these dotted lines are sew lines. You're gonna sew between this point and this point. That's what this is telling you. And again, these are markings. You would need to mark this to let you know to match and pair these sections. Okay, and the dotted lines represent stitch lines. Now, you'll also notice on this pattern that there are triangles along here. So these triangles are here to tell you to match this cut of fabric or match this pattern piece to another piece. Okay, these are the markings that are in the seam of the garment. These circular markings are things that you need to match within the inside of the garment. So let's keep going. So this says to place on fold. Here's something that I really want you to take a look at. This is the pattern itself. This black line is the pattern. It's very important that this black line actually sits on the fold of the fabric as precisely as possible. If it's off of the fabric, what you're doing is you're adding width to this skirt the further away it is from that line. Okay, so place on fold means to put this fold on the folded edge of your fabric. Okay, here is another marking here that you will cut out. Now, a lot of people, especially when you cut out knits, you'll want to cut this in a triangular shape. However, for me, when it's wovens like this, I will just cut straight across here, and I will clip with my scissors, clip to the length of this triangle to let me know something matches to this point. On tissue patterns, guys, the seam allowance is accounted for. There is seam allowance in this. So remember, we saw the finished garment measurements on the back of our pattern. So after you have cut this fabric out and you've sewn it and you've sewn down the seam allowance, these are the numbers that you should be left with. You should be able to go back and measure this garment, and it should be these numbers here. So with that, your standard seam allowance is 5/8 of an inch, unless it's otherwise stated on the pattern. Sometimes it's 3/8 of an inch, but it will tell you on the pattern if the seam allowance is any different. Okay. Okay, here is a very good example right here. This says cut 2. Okay, so you need to cut 2 separate pieces, and that is accomplished when you fold your fabric in half like this. You're automatically going to get 2. This says 3/8 inch seam allowance. So here it's telling you that you're going to sew a 3/8 inch seam allowance here, here, and it's also right here. This symbol here, this bar, represents a buttonhole. And here you have all of the sizing. This is a shoulder strap. All of the sizings, and you will choose your size and of course cut that out. These circles here are also very important. So if you were cutting this out in a size 12, you would want to make sure to mark size 12 on your fabric before you take the pattern out, because this is telling you exactly where to match this strap onto the skirt, your skirt pattern piece. Okay. There is something else that we need to take a look at here. This is your grain line. This tells you which direction this pattern needs to lie on the fabric. Okay, and this grain line, it should always be parallel to your selvage. So remember in the beginning, I told you this is the folded edge and this is the selvage. Okay, so this is telling you that this line should be parallel to the selvage. So that means it should look like this. Okay. What else do we have? Front and back facing. Again, this is another piece that needs to go on the fold, center fold. And this says cut 2 on the fold with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. All right, guys, so I'm gonna go ahead and lay this entire pattern out on the fabric so you can see what it looks like. to see a part 2 to this, if you're interested in seeing how I cut this out and how I actually transfer the markings, go ahead and let me know in the comments and we can do a part 2 and I can actually cut this pattern out. Also, I have something very cool to tell you guys. If you go to my Instagram page right now, Sew Into It Lessons on Instagram, I'm gonna put in my stories a question. Whatever it is that you would like to see me do, a video that you would like to see me do on this channel, you can leave your answer, what would you like to see me sew next, or something to that effect, in my stories. You guys know how the stories work. It's only gonna be up for 24 hours. So by the time this video is uploaded, that question will be in my stories and you can let me know right there and then if you would like to see me do something specific or a certain kind of video or tutorial here on the channel. As always, thank you and I hope to sew with you soon. Bye.